Welcome to the Creating Powerful Impact podcast, where we look at behind the scenes of why and how leaders are making an impact and how you can too. I'm Shay Wheat, the founder and CEO of Grace and Ease Productions and the host of Creating Powerful Impact podcast. We support 6, 7, and 8-figure speakers, coaches, and expert thought leaders in creating powerful and profitable live and virtual live events. Our clients have made over $25 million in revenue, gained over 3,700 new clients, and changed the lives of over 29,000 attendees with events as few as 50 people and over 4,000 in attendance. So stick around to the end of the show where we'll reveal how you can be a next guest in just 15 to 20 minutes. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. Today, I have somebody coming to you from all the way across the pond, at least from me, over in Amsterdam today. We have the amazing Sumit Gupta, who is a serial entrepreneur, leadership coach, and founder of the Deploy Yourself School of Leadership, where he supports the most powerful change makers on our planet. I'm already excited to chat with you. Whether this is, business or the nonprofit world, and he really helps them to see their own power. So please help me welcome to the stage, Sumit Gupta. Glad to have you here today. How are things over in Amsterdam?
Things are pretty good here over in Amsterdam. Yeah, thank you.
Good. I love Amsterdam. We were saying right before the show here that I was just there in November. And we've got, one of my coaches actually used to live in Amsterdam. Now he's just a little bit outside of it. And then one of our really good friends is over in Breda, which is really fun. So we went and saw him as well and hung out in Rotterdam, and just really, really beautiful country. So excited to have you with us today. I know today's topics, we're going to touch on a couple of things and your expertise around leadership in business and entrepreneurship, looking at creating high performance teams and how to possibly lead with love and intensity. But before we dive into that, would you please give our audience a little high level explanation about what it is that you do and how you are creating impact in the world?
Absolutely. Yeah. So before I started to do what I am doing now, I have a long career as a leader in technology companies like Yahoo and Booking.com, but then also as an entrepreneur with a couple of companies and a NGO of my own. So those experiences is where I have learned the ropes of leadership. And I started as a very shy and introvert person who wouldn't be any good with talking to people. But through leading teams, through starting my own companies, and over that 16-year period of being a bad manager and then slowly learning to understand what leadership is, why people behave the way they do, I have come across certain foundational principles now, which I use every day, but I also help other leaders use the power in the same principles and actually make any interaction with human beings better.
Yeah, I love that because at least in business, what I've seen, or even in the corporate part, you're there, you're working, you do your job, you get promoted. Now you're in a leadership position and you get promoted. And then I don't know if you've seen this in some of the companies you've been a part of, but some people get promoted to incompetence. They're really good at what they do, but not so much at leading the team. And it is really a new kind of development, so to speak, of what we get to learn and grow into. You don't necessarily, and maybe you see something different than I do, but I think it is a learned skill set versus kind of like something you're born with. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think just like anything, leadership can also be broken down into a set of skills, and they can be learned. Just like getting on a bike, just like swimming. Like one of my coaches says, leadership is a full body contact sport. So I treat leadership as like that kind of where you are fully involved, not just your mind, but you're fully involved with your body. And just like any skill, you have to get on the bike, you have to fall down, you have to get back up. And then through that process, you can learn to be a good leader.
I love it. Okay. So tell us a little bit about like where does leadership in business and entrepreneurship show up? And what are maybe some of the pitfalls and the things that you end up seeing when you go, oh yeah, it's maybe time for me to up level my leadership now?
Yeah. I think if I go maybe a few decades back, leadership was a lot about intensity, about getting things done, about commanding people or controlling people. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like as leaders, you are supposed to get results which are not going to happen on your own, right? So that's what a leader does, whether in their personal life or in their business. But now in the last few decades, there is a lot of focus on caring for people, taking people along, loving people, right? And I still see that people see them as opposites of each other, or something which, like, if I increase the love, then I have to let go of the intensity. But if I increase my intensity, then somehow the love or the caring suffers. What I try to do is basically say that these two are not like in opposition of each other, but actually if you can do both together, they work well, so well that sometimes an expression of love could be making a tough statement or being radically like honest with whom you're talking to. And the foundational principles of like behind all human beings is that we all want to be taken care of, we all want to belong, but at the same time we all want to contribute, we all want to grow. So if a leader can lead with love and intensity at the same time, it is actually not two different things. You can start from two different places, but when they intersect, at that stage you can become a very powerful leader, where people are following you not just because of the title or the salary, but because of what you're doing. And then because of the intensity that you provide, you and your team are producing results which have never been possible before.
That's an interesting concept to look at, leading with love and intensity. Would you maybe explain or share a story of what that looks like, or how somebody has utilized love and intensity to kind of move their team forward?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think when people say use the word intensity or being direct or being candid, it often seems like either I am being arrogant or I am being not caring or not kind. And that somehow takes away from the love, right? But if you can frame a conversation, starting with the context that we are here together, we are here together for this purpose, you are part of this team, and I see you as a champion. If you can bring that love, but then add the meaning part of it, right? Because nobody is here just to feel good, right? Nobody works in business just to feel good. Although you have to provide that safe space, even just providing that and nothing else is not leadership, right? Then it becomes a very comfortable environment. But if you can combine that with, like, I see this possible for you, even when you're dealing with the mistakes, even when you're dealing with an underperformance, you can take it as intensity without respecting the other person. You can see it that this is wrong and we need to fix this. Or you can say that you are a champion, we hired you because of this. Now there are certain things which we expect from you, and I know that you are capable of this. So let's figure out what is missing. Let's figure out how can both of us help you get where you want to go, right? And then giving people a choice, because love is also about autonomy. Giving people a choice to say that I have very high standards for you. I see you are a champion. I am ready to support you. I am going to like jump and work with you, slog with you, everything. But you have the choice to say yes and no. And if it is a no, then that's perfectly fine. So that's how it looks, right? So you never leave the person alone. You never point a finger. You always create a space and carry them along with you with love, but at the same time showing them that there is so much more that they can do. And then giving them that support, giving them that space or that support network, that even if you fall, that's perfectly fine. Let's get back up and get on the stage.
So is this also kind of tied into culture? Like you're creating a culture within the leadership and through the ranks of, okay, great, I see you as a champion. I'm hiring you because you're an expert, and we're all going to F up, right? We're all human. We're never going to get everything perfect. That's okay. But let's, how are we working through it together? And I love the piece that you also talk about. They're in choice, right? We're always in choice, and giving them that opportunity versus like pointing the finger and scolding them.
Yes. So culture can be one big abstract word, but if you really break culture down, it is basically the set of conversations or behaviors that you're allowed to have or not allowed to have, right? So if you can actually change your conversation, if you can change the behavior that you show up with, you are actually changing the culture right then, right there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So everything which you speak, everything which you show, which you lead by example, you're also giving others permission to actually do that for their own teams, for their own reportees, right? And that's how culture gets created. That's how culture gets changed. And it's so easy to talk about culture as that's one big umbrella which is hovering over me, rather than saying like, let's change this. Even if we have a culture of doing something, every leader has an opportunity to say, right, starting now, this is a new company, this is a new start, right? We might have done this, but no more, right? And this is the standard I am setting now, this is the standard we are setting now. And then yes, if you don't want to be part of that, that's totally up to you.
Yeah. So they're like buying back into the new culture, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you cannot force buy-in, right? You cannot force loyalty, you cannot force trust, you cannot force respect. And again, that's against every time we try to force or demand something, which like from a very foundational thing, you cannot force love. You have to earn love, respect, trust. So you cannot go beyond a certain level. That's where the intensity starts to take away from the love, right? So love is acknowledging the other person's dignity, their power as their own, but setting your own boundaries, setting your very clear criteria that we have this customer, and to serve this customer, we have these criteria. If we do not fulfill these criteria, this customer will not have our business. In the same way, if you do not service this criteria, you will not be able to work here, right? So this is a standard. So, and this is not about being rude. This is simply about being honest, right? This is simply about, like if you're taking a bike on a road, telling them that this road is slippery is not being rude to somebody. So, similarly, setting your standards and then telling people upfront that this is why we are here. This is why we are here.
So would you say maybe one of the big stumbling blocks that entrepreneurs have would be not being clear on the signs on the road, so to speak? Like, hey, it's slippery when wet right here, right? Like, and maybe that's kind of where people, especially entrepreneurs and CEOs, end up stumbling a bit, is they're not themselves clear on what the standard is and what it is that we're doing and how we're moving the team forward.
Absolutely. So that is one element. But the second element is that skill in conversation, that when you're talking, are you even here, right? Are you present? Or are you just focused on your agenda? Are you just focused on your numbers? Are you even listening to the other person? How are they reacting to that? Are they scared? Are they confident? Are they willing? Or are they showing defensiveness already? Because if your teammates are showing defensiveness, either you can deal with it 3 months down the line when the project fails, or you can say that I can see that something is not clicking here. I don't want to make you defensive. We are here together. We are not A versus B. We are A and B. So tell me what is making you uncomfortable. And that's love. And that's also being intense, because it's not easy to talk about these things. It's so easy to brush them aside.
Yeah.
So that's also being intense.
Yeah. What kind of comes up do you see for CEOs that are, moving into having more team and having to step more into that leadership role? What do you see as like some of the pitfalls or the things that they end up doing to either avoid leadership or not look at it, or what are you seeing?
So one of the elements is prioritizing being liked rather than prioritizing doing what is required. So many times people know what I should do, but they say that if I do this, my team will not like this, right? Or if I do this, then I'm not being kind, right? So I'm not being loving, and I want to be loving, right? But to not see that you're actually taking away from your commitment as a leader if you don't do that is also in a double blind, right? You don't even see that you're holding yourself back. So that's one thing. And the second thing is your own self-confidence, your own insecurities, your anxieties. Unless you can see that head on and deal with it head on, you cannot help your teammates deal with their own stuff, right? Because we are human beings, so we will all have stuff. We will all have things which will make us scared, which will make us anxious, which will make us excited. So just like we show our excitement, if we can also be honest and show our fear, show our anxiety, or even say, right, to give you an example, in the last couple of years with COVID and with all the work moving to hybrid and virtual work, A lot of leaders still try to be in control, still try to like, we know how to fix this, when basically nobody knows what will happen in the future, right? Nobody knows how the work.
We don't have a crystal ball.
Absolutely. But to say that, right, for a leader to say that I do not know what will happen, let's figure this out together, is very difficult.
Yep. Yeah. It's so true. It's so very true. I mean, even when COVID hit, we were in the middle of planning an event for over 700 women to be coming on site, in Santa Cruz. And that was a Friday is when we went into lockdown, and the event was supposed to be on Monday. Right. And so it's like, you don't know what's going to happen. And how do you as a team then come together and go, we need to create an experience for the women that are coming for this event, right? And so it's that leadership that comes into play where you're like, okay, didn't expect it. Now what do we do, right? I love that. So so somebody's listening and they're going, okay, I get it. I understand it. But how do I actually create a high performing team? What would you tell them?
I would say two things, right? One is listen. Instead of thinking, oh, what can I say? What can I do? Listen, because your team will tell you what are those elements where you need to improve. That's one thing. And the second, even when you speak, ask yourself, what is it that you're not speaking, right? What is it that you want to say, but you're not able to say? And when others are speaking, ask other people, right? What are you keeping it from me? What are you keeping inside? Because it's not comfortable, because it's not acceptable. And all of those fears, doubts, anxieties, emotions are actually which brings people together, are actually which creates the space which will allow any performance to go from low to medium to high. But all of these elements which are always there, and if we just stop, we can sense them in people's bodies, in their tone of voice. But if we can address them head on, first of all, listen, and then ask people, and even yourself, be willing to share that I have no clue, right? Can you help me here, right? I know I'm supposed to be a leader, but right now I have no clue. Can you help me? If any leader who does that, their team becomes stronger, their leadership becomes stronger, not weaker, as it might appear first.
Yeah, because I'm sure that is the fear of the CEO, is going, I'm the vision, I'm the one that's leading the ship and turning things here and there and everywhere. Does it come across as me not being a strong leader if I don't know where in the world we're going right now?
Yes. And you can say those two things together, right? I am a CEO. I am responsible for that. And I completely take this responsibility. But at the same time, I want to be honest with you, with this situation, in this particular case, we are going to take some baby steps because I have no clue, because I have no idea. So let's figure it out together, right? Faking it is worse than being honest about it. And then that acknowledging that fear, first of all, realizing that you are fearful, and then bringing it out to your people is basically what is needed for everything which we call, right, diversity, inclusion. It's actually this, right? If we cannot include our fears, if we cannot include our grief, even grief, right? When people were losing people from COVID, unless you can give space for that sadness and grief, where is the inclusion here, right? Inclusion is not just about people from different races or different colors. It's about ideas. It's about what people are not sharing. Can you give them that space to share?
Now, what about, something goes wrong, something like the team as a whole screws up, and the client is like, hey, yeah, this is something where we're not going to be able to move forward anymore. It's I don't know, it's a cultural mismatch or whatever, right? How does the leader end up supporting and not necessarily fixing, but making that situation work for not only the customer, but then also how do they move the team forward?
Yeah, I think first of all, there is no one size fits all solution, because it might be different things. But as a general rule, once again, addressing those hidden, if there's a pink elephant in the room, addressing that upfront, right? If you made a mistake, then apologizing. If the client has an issue, if the client is not following up to your values or to your standards, then also having a very clear conversation with that client, and even to the extent of letting the client go if they are not meeting up your expectations, and then coming back to your team and saying, what did we do well? What did we do wrong? What can we learn? And then how can we take it forward, right? Without folding to the client, but at the same time, without trying to bully the client, but without letting the client bully you also, right? So maintaining your equality there as well, and then telling your team or showing to your team that just because there is a client relationship doesn't mean that one side is better or higher, right? It's a transaction, it's a business transaction, it's an exchange of value. So if you are wrong, if you have made a mistake, going out and apologizing, taking the steps to make sure that those don't happen again. But at the same time, if some boundaries have been crossed, then to enforce those boundaries and to stand by your team, depending on the situation, right? And all of this actually requires love as well as courage to be that honest. And even to sometimes this could lead to a risk to your business as well if you can let go of a high-paying client. But the amount of trust and loyalty that can generate in your team, that they will actually do more without you even asking for it. And that in the long term, that obviously will pay off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. Awesome. So why do we even need to be looking at leadership as a part of business? Like, why bother? Can you not just like have somebody else on your team handle all of these things?
I think that's where we like it's a big maybe misnomer or misunderstanding in our culture that leadership is not part of somehow humanity itself, right? No, unless we are doing something very mechanical. If you're dealing with people in any capacity, you can be a better leader, and it will help you not only increase the results that you produce, but it will also help you be more happy, more satisfied, more joyful, more meaningful of whatever journey that you're going through. So to me, leadership is not just about the results, but producing the results in a way that make you feel proud of the results, right? That make you feel worthy of the journey that you have gone through, even if there has been struggles or difficulties on the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well, let's switch gears just a tad bit because, I mean, we could probably talk leadership because there's so many nuances to it. But, being that we produce events, we kind of want to look a little bit behind the curtain here and see, what kind of challenges have come up in your business? How have you scaled your business? How have you, are there any stumbling blocks that came up for you? And what lessons did you learn from it?
Yeah, so for me, I have deliberately kept my business small for now because I want to focus on a few people and a few organizations and do a work there. At the same time, I'm also developing a lot of content or courses or stuff which will continue to keep paying off in the future, right? So I've deliberately taking one step after the another because I do have that experience of going too fast in my own career as a leader and seeing the positives, but also the drawbacks of it. So deliberately going slow, but that also means that I am setting up things which will continue to pay me for the next 20 years, right? So for me, I know that what I'm doing is I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. So this is not like, let's try this and see what happens. This is where I am going to be for the rest of my life. So there's no rush there. That's one thing. And second, there's a lot of background work. There's a lot of skills. There's a lot of network. There's a lot of community, which I'm developing, which will continue to create more events or more experiences or more services and programs for people, maybe a few months or a few years down the line. But I have been already, half of my brain is still like 5 years ahead, and half of it is on the actual delivery, on actual what do I need to do to make sure that the business continues to grow.
Yeah, which I think is, just being owners and CEOs, you have to have a little bit of is the vision of like, okay, this is where we're heading and this is the direction and this is what we need to start having in place and breaking it down to the point of where are we at now that's going to help us in 5 years actually achieve that goal. So kind of the slow and steady approach is the direction that you're going in at the moment to continue to scale and leverage what it is you're doing.
Yes. And even in my work with leaders, even when I bring people together in small groups of maybe 10 to 20, I try to slow things down. I try to not like just cram every hour with content or with work, but slow things down, because sometimes slowing things down actually can allow you to be more present and see what was right in front of you, but you were not seeing. So a very relaxed full day of events or programs is something which I have organized. But it's very different where you are very relaxed. You're maybe doing some time in silence, you're doing some meditation. And then you see that the biggest problems that you have, you automatically start to generate ideas or solutions, either individually or as a community. You start to help each other, because that's the natural like aspect of human beings, that we do not need to do something extra. Many times we need to let go of something which we have been distracting ourselves with, and then our brilliance kind of shows up on its own, and our leadership kind of shows up on its own.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. Well, gosh, we could talk about so many more things, but we're going to start wrapping this up. I know that you have an opportunity for people to stay connected with you, and you also have a gift that will actually support in transforming our audience's life and their leadership. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes. So I have a workbook with 164 powerful questions, which if you are a leader, if you're an entrepreneur, you can use those questions to ask to yourself, to self-reflect. You can use these questions to ask your team members, to basically provide a breakthrough if you're stuck in any area. And those questions are actually divided into multiple categories, which you will find very valuable. And I would just want to add one caveat, that many of these questions are actually provocative questions. So they might challenge you, and I might throw something up as a challenge, which might threaten you or which might provoke you. But I just want to add that that is deliberate and in your service, so that you're able to see something which you're not seeing on your own, right? So that dealing with all of that insecurities and all of those fears can often be uncomfortable. So some of those questions are basically meant to bring that out. But again, in your service, not to show that you're weak, but actually to show that there's a totally different level of leadership with love and intensity after that.
Does that tie into what you were saying earlier about what are you not speaking? Some
Absolutely.
of those questions will kind of bring that kind of knowledge to the forefront.
Absolutely.
Okay, yes. Beautiful. So 164 powerful questions to transform your life and your leadership. And the way that they pick that up is heading over to deployyourself.com. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely
okay.
Right.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us today. Before we kind of put the little bow on this, is there anything else that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is that leadership is not something which is accessible for some and not accessible for some. If I see children, or if you see children, I think what children exhibit are a lot of those leadership skills: being direct, being upfront, being very demanding, but at the same time being caring, being empathetic, crying with you, laughing with you. So this is something which we all have, and we just have to let go of stuff which we have carried up from our upbringing or from our culture. And this is accessible for everybody. This is not just for a select few or a few chosen leaders, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well said. Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us today. Remember to head on over to deployyourself.com to pick up those questions, 164 questions. There's going to be a lot of growth with even just looking at the questions ourselves as CEOs and leaders of our companies. So thank you for being with us here today. And I look forward to seeing and hearing you all on the next episode of Creating Powerful Impact. Until then, have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Creating Powerful Impact podcast. If you are a successful coach, speaker, author, or thought leader who would like to be on this program, simply visit creatingpowerfulimpact.com/guest. If you are someone who got something out of this interview, would you please do me a favor and share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on your socials. Also, if you know somebody that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Creating Powerful Impact. I love seeing all of your posts and great guest selections. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and they really mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more about us? Head on over to our website, graceandeaseproductions.com, or follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Just look for Grace and Ease Productions on your favorite platform. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.